Hey, I'm Mr. Lovin, and let's highlight the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment is one of the most important amendments to the Constitution because it reinforces the idea of federalism, or the sharing of powers between the states and federal governments. The 10th Amendment really doesn't change the Constitution in any way, or change the way the Constitution is interpreted. Instead, it simply but definitively reinforces the principle that the federal government only has the authority to enforce the laws of the Constitution, and that any and all other law-making abilities should be reserved for the states. The intention behind the 10th Amendment was to hold the federal government in check and truly limit the scope of power of the federal government to what the Founding Fathers had originally desired. Under the system of federalism, the states get the first crack at creating new laws. State governments are usually much more successful at creating laws that serve the needs of their people because each state and each region of the country has different needs from the other. Think about it. Life where we are in Southern California operates so much differently than the states of the Midwest. Our economy here is based on business, technology, and entertainment. In the Midwest, farming, manufacturing, and natural resources make up a huge portion of the economy. We also live a different lifestyle. We hold different values, and we have drastically different costs of living. In all, the needs of the people here are inherently different than the needs of people there, as it is different for almost every other state in the Union. And so each state government is best suited to design the laws that govern their people. Sounds great, right? So where's the rub? The rub is when the state's governments become abusive and pass new laws that violate the Constitution and infringe on the rights of its citizens. When this occurs, the federal government has the authority to intervene in order to enforce the Constitution and protect the rights of its citizens by striking down the state laws and passing new federal laws that better meet the needs of the people. For example, after the Civil War, the southern states passed new laws that were intended to segregate the races and keep the newly freed slaves from exercising their rights as citizens, including the right to vote and the unenumerated right to access public services. These laws were known as Jim Crow laws. These laws were unconstitutional and violated the rights of African Americans guaranteed under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. As the decades rolled on and southern state governments continued to defy federal law, a growing civil rights movement put pressure on Congress to intervene and put new federal laws in place to strike down unconstitutional state laws in the Jim Crow South. Finally, in the 1950s and 60s, the federal government passed sweeping federal civil rights legislation that prohibited state governments from denying the rights to citizens based on race, color, or creed, and forced southern states to obey the Constitution. In this case, you can see the 10th Amendment in action. However, the principle of federalism also allows the states to check the power of the federal government and enact laws that peel back federal authority and enable its citizens to exercise their rights free from federal interference. For example, recent history has seen state governments enact laws that enable citizens to use cannabis and similar substances for recreational and medicinal purposes, despite federal law that makes possession of such substances a crime in certain cases. Other states have enacted stricter voter registration laws, while others have laid out strict marriage laws. As long as these state laws don't violate the Constitution, the federal government has no authority to strike them down or prohibit states from enforcing laws passed by their legislatures. Therein lies the give and take of federalism at the heart of the 10th Amendment. The states have the authority to make laws for themselves and their citizens unless those laws violate the Constitution, in which case the federal government can make laws that supersede state laws in order to protect the rights of the people, guaranteed in the Constitution. Over the centuries, the Constitution has changed by the will of the states and the people, and the federal government has been granted more power in order to deal with issues facing the country that the states could not handle on their own. These issues include national security, the national economy, world wars, as well as business and financial regulation. When the states and the people vote to change the Constitution or re-elect officials who support growing federal authority, we are giving our approval to hand over power from the states to the federal government, which is permissible under the 10th Amendment. Thank you so much for watching. That's the 10th Amendment, and this has been your History Highlight.